How's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to review my Seiko Marine Master Reduced GMT MM200. I'm not honestly sure what the nickname is for this one. This one specifically is the SBEJ009. This one is the JDM version. This is also known as the SPB381 outside of Japan, so if you're familiar with Seiko, you know that they have reference numbers for their models in Japan and then outside of Japan. I'm going to call this one the SBEJ009 because I bought it physically myself in Japan, so I guess it's the Japanese domestic version. In comparing them to side by side to the outside of Japan version and the one I have, I don't really see a big difference. Even the dial to me doesn't look too much different. Sometimes I know there's different markings. Some of them will say made in Japan. This one I think is relatively the same. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I bought this one physically in Japan. I bought it at Yodobashi Camera in Shinjuku, which is an excellent store, by the way. I highly encourage you to check it out if you're there. They have all kinds of Seikos, Citizens, Orients, Casios, and then they've got some European models there too. As far as the price goes, I'll put it up in yen, I guess, but I got a pretty good deal because my currency is relatively strong versus the yen. And as a non-Japanese resident or citizen, I can save tax there. So if you're ever in Japan and you're looking to buy Seikos and whatnot, the deals you can get are fairly good. So starting with the case, I think that this is a very well made case. As you can see, the finishing on this thing is excellent. Multiple different types of finishes, polishing along the sides, and then the tops are brushed. I think Seiko does a pretty good job with finishing, and this one is certainly no slouch. The crystal is a sapphire crystal with an anti-reflective coating, I think. The bezel, you can hear it spinning here, has a ceramic insert. It's a typical Seiko bezel, although I would say that versus lower priced Seiko models that I have, this one is actually quite good. But again, it has that Seiko feel. It kind of feels similar to my Tuna, but a little bit better than the Turtles or the Monsters that I've got. The lume is typical Seiko Lumi-Bright. It's very good. Shines for a long time, and it's very bright, especially compared to other watches. The bezel is not lume, but the pip is. The dial on this one is quite busy. There's a lot of markings on there. You can see that the 24-hour scale is actually in the Riho. Chapter ring, I'm not sure what the correct term is. I think it's Riho. But in any case, that's where the 24-hour is. That's where the 24-hour hand connects to. The bezel is a dive time bezel, so you have basically a GMT type watch with a timing bezel in it. There's a lot of markings on the dial. You can see where it says GMT, automatic 3 days, divers 200 meters. So this is a 200 meter dive watch. I think that this is pretty cool to have the combination of GMT and timing, because then it gives you two different functions. I suppose the only downside would be that you're only tracking 2 time zones versus the kind of typical 3 time zones that you would get in other GMT watches. I think that the dial is nice. This one's a nice green color. You can tell that it's green in most lighting. If you're in pretty dark lighting, it kind of looks black, but on most occasions you can tell that it's green. Some other green watches that I've got, it's a little challenging to see the green in some lighting, but with this one you can always tell that it's green for the most part. Also, I enjoy the contrast between the white and the green. I think it makes it easy to read. I'm not a huge fan of when indices have a bit of a green tinge, so I think the white is very nice and legible. All in all, I think the dial is quite nice. Moving to the bracelet, I think the bracelet is also fairly good. It's sized with pins and collars, and the tolerances is decent. It looks nice. It's comfortable. And the clasp on it is actually upgraded from other Seikos too. Well, I guess maybe not. They've been doing this clasp for a couple years now, but versus the older Seikos I have with a press clasp, to me this is a pretty decent upgrade. It's got 4 micro adjustments, which is nice, so you can get it sized to you pretty well. And it has the sort of milled swing arm. And then it has this kind of funky diver's extension on here, which I never use. I don't really like them, but it's there. I don't really care, honestly. I don't even use diver's extensions when they're really nice, so for me it doesn't really matter, but it's there. Clasp is comfortable. It's not that big, so yeah, it fits on the wrist nice, and it's fairly well made, I would say. As far as the movement goes, this watch is a 6R54 Seiko movement, so it's got a pretty long power reserve, 72 hours. It's a low beat movement, so So this one's a 21,600 BPH movement, so it's a lower beat movement, similar deal to an NH35 or a Powermatic 80 or something, so you're not getting the smoothest sweep. But overall, I think the movement's fine to me. As far as accuracy goes, I know that the quoted plus 25 to minus 15s that Seiko gives is a kind of a wide range, similar to what Oris will give you with a Salida or something. So tend not to like when companies don't give you an accurate range, but I guess it kind of covers them if you get a watch that's fairly inaccurate. This one here, the accuracy has been okay. I haven't really timed it super rigorously, but from what I can tell, it loses time. So this one's probably about -5, -4, something like that. And the only way I'm thinking that is I've kind of timed it just myself looking at it. I've not used a time grapher, so just be aware my accuracy may not be exact, but I can tell that it loses time because after a few days it ends up being slightly slow. So for me, I don't really care that much. I have so many watches I rotate, and the accuracy to me is not the biggest deal, but yeah, I can see how some folks wouldn't like that at the price point of this watch. It might be nice to have a better accuracy range. The functionality of the movement, it's a GMT watch, and this one is what is referred to now, I guess, as a collar GMT. So as you may know, this means that you cannot change the hour hand without hacking. You have to change the GMT hand with the date. You have to rotate on the first pull out, you rotate the crown and it changes your time zone. This one, I guess, is now, we're referring to this as collar GMT because it is better if you're tracking a time zone that is different than your own. Whereas the other type, it makes it easier to travel because when you land in a separate time zone, you don't have to hack the movement and reset the accuracy of your watch. You can just simply switch the hour. So as far as functionality for me personally, I honestly don't really care. If a watch looks nice and it has a collar or a traveler GMT, it doesn't really bother me. I would take either. And I've never been in a situation where, I'm on a plane and I'm in a hurry and I can't reset the watch. A lot of times we're sitting on the plane for a long time, so you've got time to reset the accuracy of the watch anyway. So for me, it's not a huge deal, but I can see if you were traveling frequently, going from time to time zone, if you traveled for work or something like that, this would be a little irritating. So it doesn't give you the functionality that a Traveler 1 does. But if you're someone who is tracking another time zone, maybe you've got family in another time zone or something, this works. So for me, the differentiation between collar and Traveler GMT is not really that big of a deal. So what are some of the negatives of the watch? I would say, for me, again, I maybe focus on bracelets too much. I would say that the bracelet, for me, is probably negative. I don't mind the bracelet, right? Like, I think the bracelet is okay. I just feel that at the price of these are going for, you could get a nicer bracelet. Seiko doesn't like to use screws, and the pin and collar system, it's a pain when you're sizing them. I've sized so many of them that, I can do it, but, and actually this one I had sized at the store, so I didn't even have to do it. But yeah, the pin and collar is a pain. The clasp is nice. I think a lot of folks would want an on-the-fly adjustment in this price range now. You can get watches at a lesser price with that. For me personally, it's not a function that I really care about. I never find that the watch is uncomfortable with it, and I tend to wear my watches a little looser, so that's probably why it doesn't really bother me. But yeah, it would be nice. As far as the GMT goes, the markers on the reho of the watch, they're quite small, and if you have not the best eyes, they might be a little tricky to see. They're easy to see for me in the sunlight and outside, but sometimes if I'm looking in a darker room or whatever, it's a little challenging. They could be a little bigger maybe, but then again, there's a lot of stuff squeezed into this dial already. So also, another critique personally for me with the dial, the automatic 3 days, I wish they wouldn't put that. I wish they just had automatic and that's it, not 3 days. I think that we don't need that, or maybe just not even put automatic and just have divers 200 meters. And then I guess the non-sign crown, it doesn't really bother me personally, but it would be nice to have a sign crown. So those are really the only negatives for me. actually think this is a great watch from Seiko. I think they really knocked it out of the park on this one. And again, you know, keep in mind that I bought the watch myself, so I obviously like it, and I'm not going to buy something that I don't like, so there's that bit of bias there. But overall, I think the watch is beautiful. It looks great. It's very signature Seiko design. The case is finished exceptionally. The dial is well made, and overall, I think it's a great package. So thanks for watching my video. Take care, and bye-bye.